Come in. Hearing Hanju's voice, Long Hao looked happy. He immediately stood up and walked into the Taoist temple. He knelt in front of Hanju and bowed respectfully. Currently, he was already at the sixth mystic divine origin and was very close to the zenith heaven golden immortal realm. His talent was outstanding, but after experiencing the immeasurable calamity, his providence had been suppressed. Hao Tian flew out of Long Hao's body and said, "This kid's cultivation level is stuck at the sixth mystic divine origin. I suspect that someone has done something to him. Help take a look." Long Hao looked up, his eyes filled with hope. Hanju probed Long Hao's soul with his sage sense. Really? This power was hidden very deeply and imprisoned Long Hao's Tao fruit. Wait! Isn't this the Heavenly Emperor's dermic powers? Hanju's expression did not change, but he was surprised. Thinking about it carefully, it was difficult to judge the Heavenly Emperor's attitude towards Long Hao. He said that he doted on Long Hao, but he didn't pass the Heavenly Emperor position to him. He said that he hated Long Hao, but he entrusted this son to Hanju as well. The Heavenly Emperor had so many sons. After the calamity ended, only Long Hao survived. No matter what the Heavenly Emperor thought, since Long Hao came to find Hanju, he had no choice but to attack. Perhaps this force was to protect Long Hao from being possessed by Hao Tian, but it was impossible to possess him under Hanju's eyes. With a thought, the Heavenly Emperor's dermic powers that imprisoned Long Hao's Tao fruit dissipated. In an instant, Long Hao felt relieved. He looked at him in surprise and asked, "Master, you?" Hanju replied, "Yes, go back and cultivate well." Long Hao hurriedly bowed out and left. Hao Tian also bowed. After leaving the Taoist temple, Hao Tian sighed. "Your master is really powerful. I feel that he has already surpassed those high and mighty sages." Long Hao smiled proudly. "Nonsense. My master ended the heavenly devil calamity. Even the sages are convinced." Hao Tian shook his head and laughed. He felt that Long Hao was the luckiest in his life to have acknowledged Hanju as his master. Otherwise, he would have long been possessed by him and would have died in the calamity. On the other side, Hanju was about to continue cultivating when the Heavenly Emperor sent him a dream. He should be called the Evil Heavenly Emperor now. Hanju accepted the Evil Heavenly Emperor's dream. This time, the dream was not the forest outside the Jade Pure Sacred Sect, but a barren land covered in corpses. The sky was very high and covered in dark clouds. It was extremely oppressive. Hanju saw the Evil Heavenly Emperor standing on a small mountain made of bones. The Evil Heavenly Emperor looked down at him and said, "Why did you get rid of Long Hao's dermic power seal?" Hanju said, "I don't know what your majesty wants. I thought you wanted to protect him. Now that he's safe, I'll remove it and let his cultivation no longer have an obstacle." The Evil Heavenly Emperor stared at him coldly. Evil Heavenly Emperor's favorability towards you has decreased. Current favorability, 3 stars. Hanju sighed in his mind. He asked, "You don't like Long Hao? Why did you ask me to take him in as my disciple, then?" Evil Heavenly Emperor said, "It's not that I don't like Long Hao, it's just that I don't like Hao Tian. The stronger Long Hao is now, the stronger Hao Tian is. The two of them are the same." Hanju was silent. As expected, Evil Heavenly Emperor asked, "Look around. What do you feel?" Hanju said, "The Heavenly Tao is really good. Yes, compared to the Heavenly Tao, this place is even more terrifying than the Netherworld. This is the deity realm of the ruins of End. Fortunately, I didn't go to the deity realm of the ruins of End. No, you should come. You can only become stronger here. If you stay in the Heavenly Tao, you will stop at the Sage Realm and won't be able to advance anymore. I've witnessed the Battle of Freedom Sages previously. Their words can become reality. They can change the battle that has already happened with a word. Don't you want that power?" "I want it, but I haven't reached the peak of a sage yet. I don't have to take the risk for the time being." "True. The evil heavenly emperor was speechless. Hanju was nervous. Their words could become reality? They could even change the past? Was this time travel, or was it directly determined through fate? The deity realm of the ruins of End was really dangerous. Hanju saw that the evil heavenly emperor was silent and couldn't help but ask with concern, "How's his majesty recently?" "It's alright. I hope that you won't be too close to Hao Tian. If possible, I hope that you can destroy him." The evil heavenly emperor shook his head. Hanju said, "I'll consider it. If your majesty is in trouble, if I can help you, feel free to ask." The dream ended. Hanju opened his eyes and frowned. The evil heavenly emperor's state was getting stranger and stranger. Even though he was not yet a sage, it still made Hanju uneasy. It seemed that the inferior strange deity and the inauspicious evil had a huge effect on him. As for destroying Hao Tian, Hanju wouldn't do anything for the time being. He had no reputation. Besides, Hao Tian's favorability towards him was high. Hanju could only wait for Hao Tian to make a mistake before helping the heavenly emperor kill this fellow. No matter what, he was closer to the heavenly emperor. If Hao Tian had always been loyal, there was no choice. If he killed him for no reason, what would the other disciples think? Hanju stopped thinking and focused on cultivating. Spring passed and autumn came. The stars spun endlessly. Another 3,000 years passed. Hanju had OCD and deliberately went out of seclusion after hitting a round number. He opened his eyes and began to check his emails. There were attacks, opportunities, mysterious curses, and other fortuitous encounters. An email attracted Hanju's attention. "Your good friend Emperor Shao left the heavenly Tao. Your good friend Emperor Shao received guidance from a mysterious mighty figure and began to leave the heavenly Tao's Providence." Hanju checked Emperor Zhao's portrait and discovered that his cultivation didn't decrease. In other words, he was not weakened but wanted to become stronger. Could it be that he wanted to imitate Li Mui and jump out of the heavenly Tao sage's identity? No! The mysterious mighty figure should be an even stronger existence. Hanju frowned and felt that he needed to calculate to prevent himself from being plotted against. "I want to know who's guiding Emperor Shao. 70 billion years of lifespan will be consumed. Do you want to continue?" "Continue." A figure appeared in Hanju's mind, and a line of words appeared in front of him. "Luo Ho, perfected freedom sage, ancestor of the devil race, immeasurable emperor, son of the heavenly Tao, Tao ancestor's fiend body." Hanju's expression became strange. He had heard of Luo Ho. His name was spread throughout the world, but the Providence label behind this was very problematic. The devil ancestor Luo Ho was actually the son of the heavenly Tao, and it was even the Tao ancestor's fiend body. Everyone knew that the reason why the Tao ancestor stood out was to trample on the devil ancestor's position. That was also the heavenly Tao's first calamity, the battle of the Tao and devils. Could all of this be the Tao ancestor's self-directed show? Or had the Tao ancestor subdued Luo Ho? Hanju wanted to continue calculating the relationship between Luo Ho and the Tao ancestor. It involves an existence that surpasses the system's limits. It cannot be deduced. Hanju had no choice but to look at Luo Ho again. He felt that the other party was about to make a comeback. These heavenly Tao sages all had powerful backgrounds. Fortunately, Hanju didn't kill them directly. EAD new chapters on no VEL in, calm forget it. Even if something happened, they would fight it out. There was no need for him to charge in. Hanju stood up and decided to go out and preach the Tao to eliminate any distracting thoughts. At the same time, in the extreme north of the immortal world, dense cracks suddenly appeared on the endless ice land. It quickly expanded, and wisps of terrifying black aura rose from below. Fine new horizon of E.L. Bin, calm the ground began to shake violently as if something huge was about to break through the surface. At this moment, the clouds were pierced by golden light. After the clouds dispersed, Figures emitting dazzling light appeared above the clouds. They were the heavenly race's immortals. The leader was Fang Liang. Beside him were the heavenly god general and the divine general. Fang Liang looked down and asked, "Do you see anything?" The divine general frowned. "They look like devils but not devils. They look more like the Azura race that was wiped out in the previous calamity." The heavenly god general nodded. "That's right. It should be the Azura race. It's said that when Xuanbingdi died, he used a mysterious mystical power to make a comeback in the future." Fang Liang fell into deep thought. The glaciers in a radius of tens of millions of kilometers suddenly collapsed. The rising ice mist pushed into the sky. It was extremely spectacular and shocking. In the boundless fog, he could vaguely see a terrifying figure. It was difficult to tell its true body. Fang Liang waved his hand and said, "Capture this evil thing." The divine general and the heavenly god general immediately rushed down. The other immortals followed closely behind. In the 100-peak immortal river, Hanju had just started preaching for less than a year. He suddenly felt a vast aura coming from the extreme north. It was at least a pseudo-sage and was no inferior to Shi Dao. Hanju didn't stop preaching. As he spoke, he looked into the distance. Fang Liang led the team and was forcefully suppressed by the mysterious existence. The situation was critical. Hanju had no intention of helping. Fang Liang was not his son. Since he was wandering outside, he should pay the price. Hanju couldn't protect every disciple of the hidden sect. Furthermore, Fang Liang had never returned. If not for his favorability not decreasing, he would have suspected that Fang Liang had already betrayed the sect. Before long, Li Daokong rushed to the 13th heaven to provide assistance. A world-shattering battle was about to take place. After thousands of years, Li Daokong had become much stronger. His comprehension of the 10,000 life sword had deepened and was on par with the mysterious existence. Since it was a draw, Li Daokong would not lose. Hanju began to focus on the lecture. 100 years passed. Most of the disciples had improved after 100 years of preaching, but the personal disciples' cultivation levels had not increased noticeably. Hanju had already taught them the great Tao of extreme origin more than 10 times. They had already comprehended what they needed to. It was very difficult to forcefully comprehend anything else. Unconsciously, potential and comprehension were like the shackles of the heavenly Tao suppressing the hidden sect disciples. There was no deity realm among the unnamed disciples yet. The strongest was only a rank 7 immortal emperor. At this rate, only one pseudo-sage would appear among a million unnamed disciples. Hanju thought as he returned to the Taoist temple. He sat on the 36th grade reincarnation world destruction Black Lotus and began to check his emails. At this moment, he suddenly felt something and closed his eyes. In the primordial world, Su Qi was calling him. Hanju's voice sounded, "What is it?" It had been some time since he had become a chaotic fiend celestial. Su Qi's body had already condensed and was no different from a living being. "Master, when can I go out? The chaotic qi here can no longer help me grow." Su Qi hurriedly replied with a nervous tone. After all, he had died before. He was worried that Hanju would not let him out again. Hanju indeed thought so. "Can you control bad luck now?" "Yes." Hanju sensed carefully. Su Qi did restrain himself very well and didn't leak it. He began to consider. Su Qi was nervous, afraid that Hanju would not agree. He recalled the mistakes he had made and felt even less confident. If he was Hanju, he wouldn't let him out either. Reincarnation couldn't wash away sins. Suddenly, Su Qi felt his vision blur. His feet suddenly landed on the ground, and the surrounding scene turned into a Taoist temple. The divine light of the sun and moon yin-yang protection caused him to squint his eyes. "Master!" Su Qi knelt down excitedly, his voice trembling. How many years had it been? He finally saw Hanju with his own eyes. Such a long separation was not a lifetime in the mortal world, but a heavenly Tao era. Hanju said, "From now on, you are to stay in the 100-peak Immortal River and not leave. Go out and find a place to stay." Suchi nodded, too excited to say anything. It was already good enough to see the light of day again. He naturally did not dare to think of complete freedom. After walking out of the Taoist temple, Suchi looked at the blinding sunlight and cried, "I'm alive again. This time, I won't be a pawn anymore." Suchi clenched his fists, his shoulders trembling from excitement. Zhangju, Cao Cao, and the Crimson Fox looked at him with strange expressions. Suchi sensed their existence and smiled at them before walking up to communicate. Zhangju and Cao Cao ignored him, but the Crimson Fox was very passionate. The Crimson Fox was a little demon beast that Hanju had taken in when he was training in the mortal world. It had come to the 100-peak Immortal River and had been cultivating obediently. It had just broken through to the Grand Unity True Immortal Realm not long ago. After chatting for a while, Suchi left to visit the other disciples. Soon, the personal disciples learned that Suchi had revived. All the personal disciples were shocked. Impossible! Wasn't Suchi dead? They knew that Suchi had ended the previous immeasurable calamity. Even Li Xianao came to see him. All the personal disciples gathered under the Fusong tree. They surrounded Suchi and asked him questions. "Master revived you? Do you remember what you did? How did you destroy all living beings? You're too strong. After using the Tao destruction mystical power, how did you escape the destruction of the heavenly Tao? It doesn't make sense." The disciples were all surprised. The black-held chicken even thought that he only had Suchi's appearance. Suchi sighed. "I don't know why. After I died, I was in a deep sleep until I woke up. When I heard Master's voice, I thought he must have saved me." Li Xianao clicked his tongue in wonder. Even the heavenly Tao calamity can be reversed. Could Sect Master really be the manifestation of the Tao ancestor? He had always heard the black-held chicken say that Hanju was the reincarnation of the Tao ancestor. He didn't believe it, but on careful thought, it really made sense. After the Tao ancestor disappeared, the timing of Hanju's rise was too coincidental. Suchi said, "From now on, I'll stay here and cultivate. I won't go out again. As for everything in the past, I hope that you won't tease me anymore. I don't feel any honor in doing that." He sighed. If not for him being forced to the end and being bewitched by a sage, why would he do that? Thinking about it now, he was filled with guilt. Tao Sovereign snorted. "I hope you really feel guilty." Zhao Xinyuan and Long Hao's expressions were also very ugly. They did not speak. In the previous calamity, many of their friends and relatives had died. Suchi was the culprit. Even if he was bewitched by the sages, the three of them could not completely forget it. The black-held chicken shouted, "Suchi, let us torture you 100 times in the simulation trial. You can't fight back. Just treat it as us venting our anger for the previous calamity." Suchi asked curiously, "What is the simulation trial?" Soon, the personal disciples pulled him into the simulation trial. They also wanted to know how strong Suchi was, the person who ended the immeasurable calamity. Suchi indeed did not fight back, but other than Tao Sovereign, no one could hurt him. Even Tao Sovereign couldn't kill Suchi. How can this be? Tao Sovereign was shocked. He was a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. Suchi was stronger than him just after revival? How? Suchi was also very surprised. Tao Sovereign's aura made him think of the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal he had encountered in the past. He didn't expect that he wouldn't die when facing such an expert. Suchi, who had transformed into the Death Fiend Celestial, had already surpassed a heavenly Tao life form. He didn't have a chaotic physique, but he was truly a chaotic Fiend Celestial. The essence of his life was like Pangu before the creation of the world, but not as strong. Even Tao Sovereign couldn't kill him. This shocked all the personal disciples. Li Yao and Zhao Shenyuan also participated. Suchi was not excited. Instead, He was very embarrassed. He knew that the Black Hell Chicken's suggestion was to resolve the grudge between him and the other disciples, but the situation had instead worsened. What should he do? He couldn't self-destruct. He was the Death Fiend Celestial and represented the great Tao of death. He couldn't let himself die. Hanju witnessed the battle in the Taoist temple. When the disciples entered the simulation trial, he could watch the battle. Su Chi's performance satisfied him. As expected of a chaotic fiend celestial, he had encountered a chaotic fiend celestial in the past. It was Jade Emperor Zhou Yan. Although he had killed him, no one in the immortal world was his match back then. He was extremely powerful. Hanju also realized the change in the mentality of the other disciples, but he didn't interfere. Some grudges couldn't be appeased with a word from him. It happened to stimulate the other disciples to cultivate diligently. 100 years later, Hanju called Tao Sovereign over. Ever since he sparred with Su Chi, Tao Sovereign had begun to enter seclusion crazily. His state was not right. Tao Sovereign entered the Taoist temple and bowed. Hanju didn't ask anything. Instead, he talked about Su Chi's past. Tao Sovereign frowned and did not dare to be rude. He could only listen patiently. Hanju began to talk about how he met Su Chi and how he was plotted against by Sage Fated Secrets. Tao Sovereign had mixed emotions hearing the story. He had to admit that Su Chi was indeed pitiful. He had never been able to control his fate and had always been treated as a pawn. Su Chi has been burdened with bad luck since he was born. Other than the hidden sect, he has no friends or relatives. He has always been experiencing pain. The reason why he is stronger than you is not because his potential is better than yours, but because I gave him a body that surpasses all living beings. He's actually my test subject and was lucky to succeed, Hanju said slowly. A body that surpassed all living beings? Tao Sovereign couldn't help but ask, what body is that? He felt that Su Chi was stronger than his chaotic physique. He had once thought that the chaotic physique was the strongest physique. Now, it seemed like a joke. Hanju said, when you reach the pseudo-sage realm, I will also reward you. As for Su Chi, I hope you won't blame him anymore. After all, no one can stop the sage's schemes. The true culprit is Sage Fated Secrets. Tao Sovereign took a deep breath and nodded. Hanju continued, don't tell the other disciples about this, especially about Su Chi's body. I understand. Hanju sighed after Tao Sovereign left. He wondered if this kid would listen. If he really annoyed him, he would throw them all into the primordial heavenly prison and gain their absolute obedience. Although it was selfish, it was effective. Ali! Outside the 33rd heaven, in the endless chaos, a lofty city was hidden in the mist like an ancient ferocious beast. Chaotic city! This phenomenon had occurred for more than 5,000 years and nothing had happened for the time being. However, for some reason, Zhou Fan felt that something extremely dangerous was hidden in the phenomenon. Not long after the Heavenly Devil calamity, the entire chaotic city did not let down its guard. At this moment, a figure appeared beside Zhou Fan. This person wore a dark gray Taoist robe. He had a handsome face and a jade sword at his waist. Zhou Fan, it's my turn. Go cultivate, the Taoist robed man said. Check out LT, SDVL, on NOVL bin. CM Zhou Fan stared at him and said, don't you think something is wrong? The Taoist robed man asked in surprise, what's wrong? It seems to be growing. The Taoist robed man couldn't help but look at the red ball of light in the depths of the chaos. He frowned. It was indeed becoming bigger. Although it was a very slow process, they could tell with careful observation with their cultivation. Should we inform the city lord? The Taoist robed man asked. Zhou Fan nodded. The Taoist robed man immediately vanished. Zhou Fan was still staring into the depths of the chaos when a voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Zhou Fan, come here. I'm waiting for you. This voice was extremely bewitching. Zhou Fan was momentarily stunned. He shook his head, wanting to stay awake, but the mysterious voice sounded again. Soon, Zhou Fan fell into a daze. He jumped and flew towards the red ball of light. His speed was extremely fast, and he quickly disappeared into the depths of the chaos. 700 years passed. Hanju ended his seclusion. He stood up, stretched his muscles, scanned the 100-peak immortal river with his sage sense. Su Qi and Dao Sovereign were both cultivating separately. It was quite harmonious. Currently, Su Qi lived near the Fusang tree and established a simple Taoist temple. Hanju retracted his sage sense and started to check his emails. Your disciple Zhou Fan was attacked by an inauspicious evil, X283. Your disciple Zhou Fan is protected by your good friend 7 Dao Sage. His injuries have recovered. Your good friend Evil Heavenly Emperor created the world and obtained great Dao merit. Your good friend Shou has begun the Dao integration and has fused with the Heavenly Dao. Your good friend Shi Dao was attacked by your good friend Li Dao Kong. Your good friend Pen Xin was suppressed by the ancient master of calamity and was severely injured. Your good friend Nuwa created a great Dao illusion and her cultivation increased greatly. Your disciple Zhou Fan was attacked by a mysterious existence and died. Your disciple Zhou Fan was saved by your good friend 7 Dao Sage and regained his body and soul. What was wrong with Zhou Fan? Hanju pinched his fingers to deduce and couldn't help but be moved. Zhou Fan was no longer outside the 33rd heaven or within the Heavenly Dao. When did he leave the Heavenly Dao? Hanju checked his emails and discovered that Zhou Fan had already left the Heavenly Dao 700 years ago. All these years, he had been ravaged, dying and reviving. It had to be said that the 7 Dao Sage was really powerful. He could revive Zhou Fan remotely even in the deity realm of the ruins of End. Hanju was far inferior to such a mystical power. Hanju asked silently, "Where is Zhou Fan?" 3 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? The cost of derivation rivaling a sage was probably related to the environment Zhou Fan was in. Hanju chose to continue. He opened his eyes and came to an extremely dark and mysterious space. In front of him was a ball of red light that changed between light and dark. It was ghastly red. He saw Zhou Fan. Zhou Fan was inside the red ball of light. He was wrapped by black tentacles covered in spikes, leaving only his soul body. This was... Hanju frowned and looked up. This red ball of light was extremely vast. It was like a star field filled with a red aura. No living beings or souls could be seen. He looked at Zhou Fan. The black tentacles did not look like solid objects, they were more like illusions. But they were indeed absorbing Zhou Fan's soul power. Just as Hanju was wondering where this was, a line of words appeared in front of him. Paradise Purgatory, chaotic forbidden ground. It is formed by the will of an ancient chaotic fiend celestial. The consciousness of the person who enters will be immersed in the illusion of paradise and will not be able to extricate himself until his soul and body are devoured. Formed by an ancient chaotic fiend celestial? Hanju frowned even more. The illusion shattered. He opened his eyes and asked, "Who plotted against Zhou Fan?" 10 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. A figure appeared in Hanju's mind. Dark Sage King. Indeed, it's him. The only chaotic expert who had been coveting the Heavenly Dao recently was the Dark Sage King. This fellow was courting death. Zhou Fan was the 7 Dao Sage's manifestation. Wasn't this a provocation towards 7 Dao Sage? From the lifespan consumed by derivation, it was impossible for the Dark Sage King to be a match for the 7 Dao Sage. Hanju put down his distracting thoughts and continued cultivating. It was really dangerous to leave the Heavenly Dao. Anyway, Zhou Fan had the 7 Dao Sage's backing, so there was no need to trouble him to personally take action. Several decades later, detected that you are 60,000 years old and your life has taken another step forward. You have the following choices. 1. Exit seclusion immediately and preach to the heavens to snatch the heavenly Tao's providence. You can obtain a great Tao fragment. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner and form your own Tao. Stay away from karma and trouble. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a supreme treasure, and a heavenly Tao spirit stone. Check out LT SDVL on NOVL bin. CM Hanju opened his eyes and sighed. Time passed really quickly. 1 year seemed like yesterday. The system became obedient and didn't let Hanju fall into a dilemma. However, the reward was too terrifying. Hanju silently chose the second option. You chose to cultivate in a low-profile manner and obtained a great Tao fragment, a supreme treasure, and a heavenly Tao spirit stone. Congratulations on obtaining the Freedom Supreme Treasure Killing Tao Token. Killing Tao Token, Freedom Slaughter Supreme Treasure. Sacrificing lifespan and providence can allow you to kill enemies. Your words can become reality. You cannot kill living beings who have no karma with you. You are not allowed to use it unless you are in a battle. Hanju raised his eyebrows. How impressive! Hanju immediately took out the Killing Tao token. This token was different from what he had imagined. It was more like an unsheathed sword. It was 3 feet long and completely blood red. Traces of light flowed around it. Holding this token, terrifying killing intent surged towards him, causing his black hair to flutter. Amazing! Hanju began to make it recognize him as its owner. Half a year later, he successfully subdued the Killing Tao token. This was the first time he had worked so hard. If not for the system, he might not have been able to subdue this treasure at all and might have even been devoured by it. Hanju immediately entered the simulation trial and started to use this treasure. There was no actual consumption of his lifespan in the simulation trial, so he could do whatever he wanted. Facing Heavenly Venerate Wufa, he sacrificed 1 trillion years of his lifespan and spat out the word execution. Heavenly Venerate Wufa turned into dust on the spot. So powerful! Hanju's heart beat faster. Against ordinary sages, he didn't even need to sacrifice his lifespan to insta-kill them. Was this the Freedom Slaughter Supreme Treasure? Hanju's heart beat faster. It was equivalent to an alternate Book of Misfortune. However, the Book of Misfortune took the continuous path, while the Killing Tao token took the domineering path. The Book of Misfortune had wider uses and could kill people subtly. However, the Killing Tao token had to be used in battle. Hanju couldn't hide in the Taoist temple and use it to plot against the enemy. Hanju began to challenge Ancestor Shitian. He was insta-killed even with the Killing Tao token. This was the case when he didn't dodge in the beginning. I'll directly sacrifice 300 sextillion years of my lifespan. Hanju thought silently. He entered the simulation trial again and directly sacrificed his lifespan. Die! Hanju waved his token and spat out a word. The Killing Tao token shook violently in his hand and red light burst out. The high and mighty ancestor Shitian suddenly turned to dust. Hanju was pleasantly surprised. Success? I can finally compete with a great Tao sage? At this moment, Hanju saw Ancestor Shitian's figure condense again and say, "Kill!" Hanju died on the spot. He couldn't resist at all. Hanju opened his eyes, looking terrified. I can't provoke Ancestor Shitian. Otherwise, even if I use the Freedom Supreme Treasure and sacrifice all my lifespan, I still won't be able to kill him. Hanju restrained himself. He almost became arrogant. He was grateful to Ancestor Shitian. Although the ancestor didn't know, he had always encouraged Hanju. He was a true sage. Hanju took out the Heavenly Tao Spirit Stone and suddenly had a bold thought. Should he use it to upgrade the Killing Tao token this time? He immediately tried. Do not upgrade the Killing Tao token. Once this treasure upgrades to the Great Tao level, it will devour you and give birth to a Great Tao spirit. Hanju froze upon seeing this line of words that suddenly appeared. He almost got screwed. Dharma treasures could become spirits? Hanju had no choice but to obediently upgrade the Book of Misfortune. In the end, the Book of Misfortune was upgraded from a Heavenly Tao Supreme Treasure to a Freedom Numinous Treasure. Holding the book, Hanju could clearly feel that the aura of misfortune was very strong. Unknowingly, he had nurtured an extremely terrifying evil creature. Should I curse a sage to death to liven things up? Hanju had another thought. Forget it. He didn't want to attract another immeasurable calamity. It was good now. The sages didn't provoke him and could still maintain the order of the Heavenly Tao and protect the immortal world. If not for the sages managing the Heavenly Tao, how could Hanju cultivate in peace? It wasn't easy to determine if he was friend or foe. Hanju put away the Book of Misfortune and perked up before continuing to cultivate. He was getting closer and closer to the late-stage primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortal realm. He was confident that he could break through in 10,000 years. After that, he would reach the perfected primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortal realm within 100,000 years. This cultivation speed was alright. 33rd Heaven, Buddhist Tao Field. In the hall, Choshilai sat on the lotus throne. Golden light surrounded his body, forming a pillar of light that was holy and solemn. A figure appeared in front of him. I can feel that Hanju has become stronger again, the Heavenly Tao Spirit said in a low voice, its tone filled with uneasiness. Choshilai did not open his eyes. It's not surprising. His potential is already ridiculous. Besides, I can't deal with him now. Let's wait for me to fuse the Tao. The Heavenly Tao Spirit said, even if you fuse the Tao, you might not be his match. Unless what? Unless you obtain the Tao Ancestor's power. The Tao Ancestor has been missing for a long time. Do you know where he is? I don't, but I know where his 3 corpse clones are. If you can obtain one, you can easily kill Hanju. So easy to deceive? In Choshilai's eyes, the Heavenly Tao Spirit's methods were truly ridiculous. Its motives were too obvious. There was no need to guess. The Heavenly Tao Spirit said, Hanju's son's cultivation is becoming stronger and stronger. He can actually catch up to Yi Tian. He will definitely become a huge problem in the future. If you don't dare to deal with Hanju, before you obtain the Tao Ancestor's clone, you can think of a way to eliminate Hanju's son. I'll consider it. Choshilai closed his eyes and continued his Tao integration. The Heavenly Tao Spirit did not say anything else and vanished from the hall. After obtaining the Killing Tao token, Hanju didn't wander around or leave the Taoist temple to preach the Tao. Instead, he focused on cultivating. Time passed quickly. Another 2,000 years passed. On this day, Hanju checked his emails. Your disciple Zhou Fan has returned to the immortal world. He heaved a sigh of relief. The big shot was still stable and had saved his Dharma idol reincarnation. He looked up and saw Zhou Fan's other emails. Other than constantly dying and reviving, there were actually opportunities. Your disciple Zhou Fan has fused with the Paradise Purgatory's Providence. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your disciple Zhou Fan has comprehended a great Tao mystical power. How impressive! As expected of the protagonist, Hanju looked up and saw that Zhou Fan had already returned to the chaotic city. This kid's cultivation had actually reached the mid-stage of the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. He had benefited from a disaster and was even comparable to Tao Sovereign. Hanju looked at Tao Sovereign. Ever since he was stimulated by Su Qi, Tao Sovereign had been in seclusion every day and cultivated very crazily. He was also getting closer and closer to the late-stage Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. Hanju was very satisfied with this. Tao Sovereign was even more reckless than Zhou Fan in the past. It was naturally a good thing that he could be so persistent now. Hanju continued to look at the disciples under the Fusong tree. He suddenly stood up and disappeared. He came to the Fusong tree. The disciples stood up and bowed when they saw him. Hanju ignored them and looked at the Fusong tree. The tree was still so majestic and looked very calm. There was nothing unusual, But Hanju felt that the Fusong tree was absorbing a strange power that came from the hundreds of space-time vortexes it had formed. Hanju asked with a voice transmission, "What are you doing?" "Huh?" The Fusong tree panicked. Hanju waved his sleeve and moved all the nearby disciples away. He set up a barrier around them and asked the Fusong tree alone. The tree's action would expose its location to hundreds of worlds. Most importantly, it had not asked Hanju. Frightened, the Fusong tree hurriedly said, "I just feel that I can absorb their power and become stronger, so I'm doing this. Is something wrong? Didn't I say not to expose your location?" "I won't, I'm just absorbing power. The power of the world is surging towards you. The mighty cultivators can't sense the direction of the power?" Why didn't you tell me?" "I want to transform." "You don't seem to want me to transform." Hanju frowned. "It's not that I don't want to transform. It's just that you're the heavenly Tao divine tree and can't transform for the time being." His words were the truth. Now that the Tao field was filled with spirit chi, the Fusong tree was no longer very useful. Visit NOV CM for the L test updates, the Fusong tree said aggrievedly, "Then I'll stop." Hanju probed the tree with his sage sense and checked the power it had absorbed. It looked like Providence, but also like merit. It was difficult to tell. This was the first time Hanju had encountered such a force. It was strong but not ferocious. It flowed like endless warm water in the Fusong tree. What power is this? 3 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Heaven and earth origin, a source of power that can only be born in a place with its own rules. If the heaven and earth origin is sucked dry, this world will collapse. So terrifying? Hanju suddenly felt that the Fusong tree was not a divine tree, but an evil tree. If it absorbed hundreds of worlds like this, how many living beings would die? Hanju said, "If you continue to do this, all the living beings in the world might die." The Fusong tree said indifferently, "I can choose not to absorb everything. Besides, the spirit chi I emit is also absorbed by living beings. Why can only others absorb me and I can't absorb them?" Hanju frowned. These words were very reasonable, but they felt strange. Under the sun and moon yin-yang protection's light, the Fusong tree couldn't see Hanju's expression, but once he went silent, it felt very uneasy. It was most afraid of him. Hanju saw that the Fusong tree was trembling slightly and the leaves were rustling. His heart softened. Perhaps he was too cautious and too harsh on the Fusong tree. Other than the Kiliakosm world, you can absorb the power of other worlds, but you can't go overboard. The longer they exist, the more helpful they will be to you, Hanju said. With the Dark Sage King in the Kiliakosm world, it was very easy to find his Tao field. The Fusong tree said happily, "Don't worry. I can sense danger everywhere. I've never absorbed the power of the Kiliakosm world before." Hanju nodded and removed the barrier. He then turned around and left. Hanju sighed after returning to the Taoist temple. His disciples had already grown up and had their own thoughts and opinions. Time passed really quickly. Even a tree had its own opinions. Hanju checked his interpersonal relationships. He was relieved after confirming that the favorability of the disciples didn't decrease. He was about to cultivate when a notification appeared in front of him. "Limuyu wants to visit you in your dreams. Do you want to accept?" What was this fellow trying to do? Another request for help? Hanju wanted to refuse, but on second thought, it was fine to listen to what he had to say. What if he had important information? Hanju chose to accept and entered the dream. The sage Tao field was as bright as a paradise. Li Muyi came in front of him and said, "Fellow Taoist Han, long time no see. How's your cultivation?" Hanju said politely, "It's alright." "Why are you looking for me?" "The heavenly Tao has developed intelligence. It's the sign of the great Tao immeasurable calamity." Li Muyi sighed, his eyes filled with uneasiness. Hanju already knew about this, so he was not surprised. Li Mui continued, the heavenly Tao is impartial because it is emotionless. In front of it, all living beings are equal. For example, if the heavenly Tao developed intelligence, it might have greed. This is an unprecedented calamity. In the past calamities, we sages could join forces to destroy them, but now, we can't deal with the heavenly Tao. The situation is troublesome. Hanju asked, then, what do you need me to do? You used your strength to attain the Tao and are not controlled by the heavenly Tao. Is there a way to destroy the heavenly Tao's intelligence without harming it? You're thinking too much. The heavenly Tao was created by giant god Pango and has been consolidated by the Tao ancestor. Even 10,000 of me are not the heavenly Tao's match. Then, can you visit Ancestor Shitian and ask him to help? The ancestor has returned? Hanju hesitated. My relationship with the ancestor is average. How can I persuade him? Find someone else. Ancestor Shitian was too strong. Hanju didn't want to meet him.